In this video, we are discussing some of the research behind teaching parents to implement social stories to address challenging behaviors. Social stories created by Carol Gray in 1991 are short, descriptive stories that contain information about specific activities or situations, and it provides information to the child about what to expect during those situations or activities and why. So these stories have been proven effective in research in helping children diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder or an intellectual disability develop better social awareness and also to possibly help to keep them safe during dangerous situations. One area focused on in the literature has been using social stories to address challenging behaviors or disruptive behaviors in children with and without disabilities. So, this has been done by helping children cope with changes in routines. For example, changes in classroom routines, or if they're going to the doctor's office the next day. And they have been implemented in the research as a specific behavioral strategy. Some of the story topics has been, what do I do when I'm angry? Or how do I cope with obsessions? According to Lane et al., parents are the first line of support for their children, especially when their children are young, because they spend a majority of their day with their parents or their caregivers. So, training parents to implement interventions is recommended and it aligns with a family centered approach to service delivery that has been established, especially for early childhood interventions. The authors go on to say that including the family centered approach is typically poorly addressed with typical practices for preschoolers diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, and that these issues may actually get worse for caregivers as their children transition into school based services. Gray and Garland suggested that social stories have the potential to be implemented for a variety of purposes. For example, teaching children new routines, increasing desired behaviors, or eliminating problem behaviors. Some of the behaviors addressed successfully in the research has been reduction of aggression, self-injurious behaviors, and tantruming, both in the home and school settings. In 2013, Hutchins and Prelock combined social stories and comic strip conversations as an intervention to encourage behavior change in children that the parents would view as socially valid. So, specifically, parents reflected on their child's social relationships and they considered them in the construct of reoccurring interpersonal conflicts, such as being mean to their sibling, their friend, or to a parent. And the intervention um, involved teaching the parents how to make social stories and comic strip conversations that addressed the problem behaviors and for the child to understand and navigate these problematic social situations more successfully. In the study, the researchers collected data which consisted of the parents' perception of how effective the social stories combined with the comic strip conversations were in changing the problematic behavior. They took data on three phases, which were the pre intervention, intervention, and withdrawal phases. The results of the study indicated that the method of combining social stories and comic strip conversations was effective for 13 out of the 17 children, which is great. Western Michigan University released a statement that efforts to train parents to use social stories has been limited, particularly in children without a diagnosis of an autism spectrum disorder, but that were displaying challenging behaviors. So they conducted a study to add to the literature in this area, and specifically, they conducted parent training on how to establish social stories using the original guidelines established by Carol Gray. Their results indicated that the parents can successfully be coached on how to create and then implement social stories. And more specifically, the results indicated that the social stories decreased disruptive behaviors and increased constructive social skills in 15 out of the 19 cases. So here I wanted to go into just a little bit more detail about how the study was implemented at Western Michigan University in case someone wants to replicate the study or if a parent wants to try this at home. So the first step was to determine the topic of the story and the goal that the parent was trying to reach with changing problem behavior. Next, the parents engaged in a process of gathering information and brainstorming about the family context with the individual child's needs words, their preferences, their skills, and then the trainers modeled how to write the social stories. The parents then went through a revision and editing step, and then finally the stories were typed up and printed out for the parents' use. So all of that is basically very systematic and easy to implement both individually and in small group settings. Okay, so we have reached the end, and I hope that this video was helpful. If you are interested in using social stories to address problem behaviors, I would suggest that you see the prior video on how to write social stories and then incorporate some of the behavior modification concepts that we discussed in this video.